Brad Deutser is an executive coach, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and founder of Deutser and Deutser Clarity Leadership, a leadership and organizational clarity firm. His clients span athletics, aviation, education, entertainment, and a whole host of other sectors, taking him to some of the most thoughtful leaders and remarkable organizations around the world. Brad is known for a unique, original approach to driving change through organizational clarity, tackling high-level challenges with creativity and grace to design and deliver solutions. He's been called on to define and transition the culture at the NFL's Houston Texans, support the transformation of the University of Arizona football program, and serve as a leadership and performance coach to players and executives across the world. Brad serves as the architect of the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Houston, a 3-time recognized #1 entrepreneurial program in the United States. And the University of Texas selected him to navigate complex social and cultural issues, and countless leaders have brought the Deutser team in to navigate generational transitions, facilitate post-merger and acquisition integrations, and support the health, well-being, and safety of tens of thousands of employees. He's the author of Leading Clarity, the breakthrough strategy to unleash people, profit, and performance, and also the book Belonging Rules, and is a regular contributor to national media outlets. Brad's active in the nonprofit community. His firm has been recognized on National Philanthropy Day, and he serves on boards and in leadership roles, including with the Young Presidents Organization. I am honored to welcome Brad Deutser for a second interview on Off the Rak. I'm Walt Rakowich, and I'm grateful to have you here as we explore what it means to practice transformative leadership. Hey, Brad, it's great to have you on again. Really nice to have you back.
I'm thrilled to be on. Super excited for the conversation.
So you've been busy since we last spoke in 2022. You know, you and I both know a little bit of something about being forced to stop when we weren't ready to. I had some medical challenges, which I've talked about last year, which kind of sidelined me for a little while. And I think your pause came on the tennis court. I understand you had a shattered elbow, broken wrist, kind of took you off the road, out of the air, kind of away from everything. But out of that, it seems to me that you've developed a concept you call divine synchronicity. Am I right saying that?
That's it. Yep.
That's a tough one. But, you know, the belief that things don't happen to us, they happen for us. How did you get from the tennis court floor to that mindset?
I think it's been part of my upbringing, my whole life. My grandparents were immigrants who came to the country, so proud to be Americans. They loved it. My grandmother was blind, and she and my grandfather had very little when they came to America, and they had a dress store, and every day she went into the dress store and helped women with a fine apparel store, Penn's Fine Apparel in Houston. And I think that from an early age, I listened to her. I saw my mom, who every day was a sunny day. It really was that lens of positivity and belief that, look, I believe the universe is good. I believe people are good. Are there some that aren't, you know, are things that happen to us sometimes not what we want? Sure. But it's that lens that I try to live my life through. When I had my accident, I don't know what was worse, the accident or the reality that I'm not Michael Jordan on a tennis court. But I thought I was an elite athlete, which I wasn't. And I did a crazy move, and I, shattered my elbow, had it replaced. And I had a week or two where I felt really bad for myself, wanted to get back on the court. And they said, this is going to be at least a year, probably longer for your recovery. And I found myself kind of just falling down a little bit mentally and I just said, no, this isn't what I want. This happened for me. And for me in that moment, what I realized is I was on the road 5 days a week. I was on the road driving from Houston to Austin, flying to New York, flying to Arizona, to California, to Seattle. And the speed was something that I love. But in that moment, what I realized is that this was an accident that happened for me, that allowed me to just pause, to recalibrate kind of my mind, my life. And I still run, I still travel. I love the constant movement. As someone said to me, you're obsessed with movement, and I am. But it was a gift, and that's how I kind of think about divine synchronicity. It's a gift. Things happen for us. We just have to pause, take a deep breath, reflect, and say, you know what? This is my new path forward.
I'm curious, Brad, has it changed the way that you coach others in their own, because everybody has challenges.
Yeah, I think that, I think anybody who works with me, CEOs, coaches, we do a lot of work. I think since we talked last, we're about to open our Deutser sports practice. We work with coaches, we work with NFL teams, owners, presidents. And I think that part of what gravitates people to us in our approach is this mindset that things happen for us, and how we have the tools, we have the pathway to connect, to create a different future. And I looked at the world is always changing. Things around us are always changing. And the best leaders are the ones who look at that future with an eye towards optimism, that this is set up for me. The economy can look like it's about to turn. I try to look at, who is it that I can help? How does this turn for me? Things are great, or a team, different things happen. And we coach the players, and we coach leaders all around with the idea of just, how do we change the mindset? We're not victims. Mm-hmm. We have incredible gifts. We're part of an incredible country. We're in an incredible time where we have the ability to find ways to overcome. Even in your illness and mine, there are days that are dark, but it doesn't stop you from believing that, wait, there's something good in this. There is that silver lining, if you will. So it's how we tend to look at life. Some people can call it Pollyanna, but what's the alternative?
Yeah, I love that. I'm the chairman of the board of an organization in Colorado that mentors inner city kids. And if there was one message we give to them, it's that you're not a victim. And I just love that attitude. Is the glass half full, or is it half empty? And if you go about life when it's half full, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Yeah, the mind has such an important part of performance.
Yeah.
And so much of our work is, how do you drive individual performance, people performance, company performance? And that may mean happiness. That may mean any number of things, but why not look at it where this is all for me, and it's for mine to go take. So let's go get it. I love that you do the work with inner city youth, because in my book, one of my favorite interviews was with a lady who was leading an inner city program in Mississippi, and I learned so much in that interview, just how those young people, they never see outside their 4 blocks of their neighborhood.
That's right.
And to me, it's the same idea here. It's like, how do we see outside our 4 blocks with that? This is for me, and let me go find a way to explore, even when it seems impossible.
So, Brad, I want to talk a little bit about culture, because a lot of what you do when you go into organizations is talk about culture. And of course, your research shows hundreds of organizations, there's a direct link between a healthy culture and high performance. Nothing surprising there, but you must see a lot of weak cultures when you first get there, I would think. And I'm curious, what's the first thing that a leader should do? Because a lot of the people that are watching this are leaders or aspirational leaders. What's the first thing a leader should do when they realize their approach isn't working?
I think that's the hardest part for most leaders. Most leaders look and say it's a strategy problem. It's an operational problem, but they very rarely go first to it's a people problem. We don't judge. And so we go into an organization with that, appreciative inquiry mindset where we're looking at the things that do work. What is the culture on our best day? What does it look like when we're functioning at our best? But when we go into an organization, we start by just trying to understand what is the organization. We do a deep dive. We do it through proprietary assessments. We do it through individual conversations. We do it through we have these special cultural listening sessions, small groups where it's highly interactive and fun, where they get out of their normal conversation mindset. But that's where we start, because every organization, there's nothing that I do for one organization that I can then replicate at another organization. The process may be similar, but we believe in the uniqueness of every organization. So really trying to get to the very core of their ethos is where our power really gets birthed, if you will. And so with those conversations is where we start, but then we work with leaders to go back. No matter how high performing an organization is, we have a work session, which tends to be organizations, leaders' favorite day of their career. People in career 30 years at an organization. We call it our Foundations of Performance work session. And in that Foundations of Performance, we take a company back down to the we core. We ask some very basic questions that people kind of shake their heads like, never been asked that. Or we ask them to ask us questions in an interesting way that elicits the truth, if you will. And we start to rebuild the ecosystem. We are big believers that there is a cultural ecosystem. So many leaders look at this just through the lens of values only, and they're one-word values. And I know, when we've talked about that one-word values are not the answer in today's environment. If we want to connect with the mind and the heart, we need more than one-word values. So we humanize those values. But we look through this ecosystem, and we start by defining what is our purpose. And in the highest performing organizations, we ask that question. And if you have an organization of 100 people, 200 people, we're going to get anywhere from 40 to 60 unique responses on that question alone. It's fascinating. So we have a process where we have a deck of cards that we custom make based on the content from the surveys that we ask, and then we sort them, and we do this very interesting exercise on purpose, on characteristics, things that are central, enduring, and distinct, things that define our personality. We get into values. At the end of the day, after lots of really complex conversations, we often put a challenge in front of them to show them how quickly culture can come together. And we dump a bunch of Legos on a few different tables and force a competition to build the culture that they want out of Legos in less than 12 minutes. So that's where we start.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You're not saying this, but one of the things I'm kind of hearing is there's value of bringing someone in from the outside that doesn't have, any biases whatsoever, to take a look at and do an assessment of your organization. I think that says a lot for you and what a leader ought to be at least contemplating doing.
There's different levels that you bring someone in, and depending on where the organization is, we have a really simple way of. I look at organizations. I look at performance through a pretty simple lens: good to great, great to champion, champion to elite. And it doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum. What matters is where we're going. And so what we find is that with organizations, can an organization facilitate its cultural conversations, its identity conversations? Absolutely. But it's interesting, what we find is there's often a bias based on people's willingness to participate or not participate, and how it's guided. An outsider comes in, and we're really clear. It's not our company. It's not our culture.
Right.
We want to elicit the best. We want to challenge the status quo and create the organization that's going to get you from where you are to that champion, to that elite place.
So this is your new book. Hopefully everybody can see this, Belonging Rules. And, great book. And in that, I'm going to get back to your cultural ecosystem that you're talking about. You say, Brad, that belonging, the word belonging is kind of interesting here, but sits at the intersection of we and me. It sort of brings everything together. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, belonging, and we can get into this a little bit later as well, but, belonging is an invitation. Belonging requires an invitation in. Leaders inviting people into an organization. And that invitation is often created by the clarity of that cultural ecosystem. So at the heart of it, at the heart of our ecosystem, we start with values. And it's collectively what we aspire for. That's the we of our organization. And our values can be, big aspirational values. And then on the other side of it is this expectation we have of people that we have through what we call behavioral competencies, our behaviors. And the behaviors define the expectations of each individual. Mm-hmm. And our belief and our research shows that when you properly define the values, what's expected of all of us together, and you define what's over here on the other side, which is the behavioral expectations, it creates a safe space because people have clarity and they know what is expected. They know the norms. And that sense of understanding, that sense of connection, goes back to our part of our first conversation. Is it allows people want to do great things. People want to succeed. They want to excel. This just gives them the clarity to do it.
So would you say, Brad, that the clarity, just in terms of leadership, is clarity one of the most important things you can do as a leader? Create that clarity?
Clarity is critically important. Because what we see is, look at the world. Step out of the organization for a minute, right? And you look at the world we live in. We're given so much on our feeds, our social media feeds. If you watch the news, if you read the news, if you listen to things, what's happening around us? There's a swirl. There's a swirl of information. Our brains are constantly calibrating what is real, what is not. I mean, our brains run overwork all the time. It's why I don't think there's really a distinction between, our time at work and our time at home. We're always on processing. And so I look at that, the idea of clarity at work as a calming influence, as a performance driver. Mm-hmm. Because when people don't have to think about what is expected and the expectations are clear, people tend to live up to them. Again, we believe in people. So there's a great book that I read many years ago called The Other Westmore, and it's actually written by the governor of Maryland. About two young people who grew up the same name in a socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhood in Baltimore. One lived a life of crime. They both started lives of crime. One will live in prison for life. The other went on to be a best-selling author, governor, will likely run for president. And my favorite takeaway from that book is we're not products of our environment, and we design environments. We're products of our expectations. And when we are clear about what is expected, culturally, behaviorally, performance-wise, people live up to it. It's how they get from great to champion to elite.
Very interesting. Well, I think that clarity is I'm with you on this. I think it's so critically important. The other thing, though, that you talk about, and when I heard this story, I almost fell over. But the other thing you talk about is human-centered leadership. And you've done leadership coaching with horses, or at least I saw a blog that you wrote about that. Literally moving a 2,000-pound animal using nothing but intention and positive energy. You said in the blog, I think you said something like, humans communicate non-verbally 93% of the time, and horses 99% of the time, something like that, right? So in order to get a horse to do something, it's not about what you say, it's about kind of the way you are from a human-centered leadership perspective. I think that was sort of the point. So why don't you tell that story? What is it that, that experience taught you about the unspoken language of leadership?
It was one of, I've done it multiple times. I did it with leaders in my company. It was telling. But the first time that I did it, I took a group of young men. I was coaching then at the University of Arizona for the football team. I coach now at the University of Washington. I'm the leadership coach, and I love these young men. I believe in what they do, how they do it. These are extraordinary people. And so I take them. So I'll go back to the Arizona story. I took a group of leaders for the team, and put one player in the pen with the horse.
Yeah.
And some of the guys were really afraid. Some of the guys were like, "Whoa, I don't love horses, so I'm not an animal guy. So I'm like, whoa, I don't know. This may go back to my days at working for Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus, but so I'm like, I get it, but you have big guys who are on a football field, running, hitting. One of the guys who was drafted, I think, in the 3rd or 4th round this year in the NFL, put him in the ring, and he's like, Brad, I don't feel safe in here. It's like, all right. And so we work on the human connection. Horses travel in packs, right? And so what happens is the horse that's leading, if they sense that there's fear, if they don't have that comfort and confidence that there's safety ahead, they're not going to lead the pack into danger. And so what happens is, it's fascinating. What we teach the young guys, the players, to do is, you're looking right at the horse in the eye. If I look down for 1 second, the horse stops. The horse will not reconnect. So it's about energy. It's about the energy that we put out, and leaders are putting energy out. Some days it's negative. Some days it's positive. Some days it's, I don't know what it is. But we put an energy out that other people feel, that creates that human connection. And so in this case, you get them to look at the horse, connect, lose the tension, and simply turn the body and walk. And sometimes it comes very easily. Sometimes it doesn't. The uber leader of the team, the biggest, strongest guy, the one who, I know horses, I've grown up with horses, said, I'll let everyone go first, I'll go last. Everyone else was in the ring with the horse for, 5, 10, 15 minutes. He was in there for an hour because the horse wouldn't move. And at the end of it, I said to him, so what did you learn? And he said, what I learned is, I think of myself as an uber leader because I have the loudest voice. I have the strongest will. I can stand up in front of a room and convince you to believe something. And I said, yes, you can. But what can't you do? And he said, I can convince you to believe, but I can't convince you to move. And I said, exactly. And the greatest leaders connect in ways that are spoken and unspoken, and we bring people along with us. They want to follow. And it's the same thing with the horse, with people. It's looking people in the eye. It's creating that energetic invitation. Hey, come on, follow me. Let's go do something. And they do it. And so it's a special day. I'm going to take the guys from University of Washington football team out this summer and do that. But we'll also do other crazy things. I'll take these, elite athletes, and we'll break bowls, and we'll have to glue them together, called the art of kintsugi, and do things that leaders aren't used to doing. And that's what we try to get people out of their comfort zone in conversation, in exercise, in any way we can, whether it's kintsugi, putting, the art of the broken, making it whole again, whether it's horses, whether it's our leadership labs that are like Willy Wonka land, whether it's Legos, whether it's mixing cocktails and mocktails in a workshop. We will do things to show leaders that the human connection, that joy in what we do is like, it's there. We just have to bring it up, invite people to be part of greatness, to be a champion, to be elite.
So at the risk of beating a dead horse, so to speak.
I'll set you up on that one, I guess.
Yeah, you did. But I want to stay on this topic of discomfort for a minute, because I've also heard you say that that organizations, even highly efficient organizations, operate at only 75 to 80% of the truth, and that the remaining 20 to 25% is where the most complex issues live, and really where lasting change actually begins if you can tackle it. So I want to stay on this topic of discomfort. What keeps leaders stuck in that 75 to 80%, and how do you create safety to surface the full truth?
Well, I love it, because one of our rules, we have 5 belonging rules, and one of our rules is demand 100% of the truth. And the research is clear, whether it's 75, whether it's 80%, whether it's 85%. I hear leaders come in and we talk, and they're like, oh, our truth is much more than that. I'm like, great, no problem. What is your truth? You think it's 90%, 92%, 95%? It doesn't matter. What we know is people are holding back because of that imbalance between fear and safety in an organization, that lack of psychological safety. Sometimes it's a lack of psychological safety. Sometimes it's just the fact that leaders put on a face that this is where we're going, and I don't need the truth. I don't want the truth. I don't need the full information. But what we see is, if we want lasting change, systemic change that goes to the core, that impacts our people, then we need to address the uncomfortable. We talk about, how do we make people comfortable in the uncomfortable? We had 2 workshops last week, and one of them was a group of 8 CEOs, elite CEOs. And we were trying to create this truth, and they wanted to create as part of a professional organization. And it was like, I'm like, guys, we're not being vulnerable. Vulnerability is key to this. We're not willing to hear the truth. So in the middle of it, I gave each of them a sticky note, and I said, hey, we're all going to use the same pen here. Don't write your name on this. And I want you to write something down. I want you to write down something that you really would love to talk about with the group, but you feel so uncomfortable or so ashamed to talk about it that you can't do it. I said, I want you to feel safe to do it. And they did it. I got the sticky notes. I think there were 2 women and 5 men, and I read them out loud. I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about religion. All right, well, it sounds like a Thanksgiving table of things you don't talk about so far, right? And then it got to, well, I'm having intimacy problems. I'm having sexual problems. I'm having relationship problems. I'm having relationship problems and financial problems. So here we are going through a session. It was a 4-hour session, 3 hours into it, finally get to the root of what's holding people back. And it was that gap. And all of a sudden, we identified the issues that were the real issues. Is it uncomfortable? Sure, it's uncomfortable. But the reality is, we carry that around. It weighs us down. Mm-hmm. And so to me, organizations are weighed down by holding on to truth that we don't bring forward. Mm-hmm. And so encouraging leaders to do that. Sometimes people don't feel safe to bring up something. So I always encourage them, don't worry. You don't have to be the one to bring the truth forward. But you do have to be the one to ask the question of others that elicits the truth. There is such great power. Well, I mean, you see this in all your companies and all your board work. The greatest leaders are the ones asking the most thoughtful questions. Mm-hmm. And if we get to a place where we ask those questions, then we chip away at that gap and chip away at that gap of the truth where people begin in a non-threatening way to talk about it. I always talk about when you ask questions, and we might have talked about this years ago, but we strongly encourage leaders to eliminate the word why, W-H-Y. It's not a belonging word. It's the antithesis of belonging. Why did you do this? Why are we doing this? Well, what happens? People sit back. We want people to lean forward. Help me understand. I'm trying to process. Mm-hmm. Can we go a little deeper on this? There's different ways to get the answer that we need to engage people in conversation, to create a safe environment. Why is unsafe?
Mm-hmm. But you can get to the same question without saying why.
Of course. You say,
help me.
Help me. I'd like to learn. Can we go a little deeper? Yeah. And not only do you get to the same place, our work tells us that we get much deeper because you have two sides that are fundamentally engaged.
Yeah.
That want to participate.
And you're not putting somebody on the defensive.
That's the whole key. Yeah. People, it's why we see organizations. Look, in leadership rooms, you watch the physical energy, going back to the horse. You watch the energy of leaders and people sitting back, some people sitting forward. You know who's engaged. You know often who is holding back because people are expecting them to say certain things. And when they don't, or when someone, I'm not going to share today because it's not going to change the leader's mind. It doesn't have to change the leader's mind. But we have a duty by way of a statement, by way of a question, by way of a thought to insert in that. I just want to make sure we're getting the full picture here. And there's parts of me, and sometimes I use that idea of part of me, there's part of me that feels like we're missing something. Even if I have the answer and I know the rest of the group doesn't, or the rest of the group's holding back, I'd love just to go a little deeper. It's just inviting people in, again, belonging, inviting people in to the conversation.
Yeah, I get it. Totally makes sense. Brad, I want to talk a little bit about the topic of personal scoreboards and scorecards for leaders too. A lot of leaders choose personal scorecards that are defined by salary and status and position and, all those kinds of things. I guess I know those things are important, but is that really all it's all about? And when you're counseling leaders, how do you talk to them about owning their own personal scorecard?
So we, in all of our performance labs, and they look like Willy Wonka land, right? So there's games on the ceilings, on the floors, flashing lights. It's built off this idea of dimensional leadership learning. And the first thing you see in every one of our labs is an old-timey scoreboard with flickering lights on it, often with the losing team winning. And people look at it and they think it's cool. And then we start talking about it. What's on your scoreboard? For a long time in my life, I kept feeling like I'm going to catch up. I'm going to catch up. I'm going to catch up. I'm not winning. I'm not winning. I'm not winning. But I was not winning because I was judging my performance based on society's scorecard. People in my sphere of friends, people who had chosen to do other things than I did, people who were in finance, people who were in other businesses that they had incredible financial returns. Were they happy? That's another story. But I didn't care whether they were happy. I looked at things that they were doing or they had and trying to work to make sure I caught up. And as we went through, as I went through some of the things that we do here, I started realizing that my happiness is not driven by how much money I make. My happiness is not driven by things that are outside of my control. My happiness and my scoreboard is really driven by how I help. My heart changes. I love the idea of being able to help leaders. It's why I do the coaching at University of Washington, and it's because you get to help, you get to give back. I'm inspired by leaders, and I love to share what other leaders have inspired me by with other people. So the scoreboard is important. For some people, they want it to be based on how much money they make. There's no judgment in that. That's their personal scoreboard. My challenge to them is that really what makes you happy? Mm-hmm. Is that really what fills your tank every day, that fills your soul? And if it is, then that's your scoreboard. But we do exercises, intentional exercises around the scoreboard about when we're behind, and is it, or when we're winning, and how does it feel, and what are the things that we are winning at? In college football, in professional football, we talk about the scoreboard all the time.
Sure.
We're evaluated. Sometimes the wins cover up some trends that aren't so positive. So are they really wins? And so we love working with leaders and teams to identify what does the scoreboard look like individually, as a team, as a company. And they can be 3 different scoreboards, 4 different scoreboards. You can have a scoreboard for your family also that can be based in love, that can be based in service, that can be based in togetherness. There's all different ways that we think about it. But we love the metaphor of the scoreboard, seeing it in the space all the time, just asking people to ground back in what's important to you. And Are you sure?
And what makes you happy?
Yeah. What makes you happy? I mean, well, it's like, you've been through what you've been through with getting through, illness and things. I've been through what I've been through. We've all been through things. And at the end of the day, yes, we search for health and happiness and connection and togetherness. Mm. And it's a really important part of being a human.
So on that topic of happiness, and I'm going to turn it a little bit to joy, the business of joy. You were hired by a leader with one simple ask, I think. Will you help me spread joy? And I think you built something scientifically, some program around it or something. Can you talk a little bit about that? And why are some leaders still treating joy as kind of this soft concept out there?
Well, sadly today, leaders still are treating culture as soft. They treat belonging as that thing. Belonging has been is kind of now used to replace DEI. And it's like, no, belonging is a human need.
Yeah.
Right? Joy is a human need. And so we worked with one of the largest, most successful private companies in the country. They came to us in their industry. They came to us and they said, hey, we know that we're number one. We know that we have incredibly high scores in everything our scoreboard, if you will, but something doesn't feel right. We feel like the amount of good that we do in the community, the things that our people do, our thousands of employees do, we just feel like we're not getting credit, not externally, but internally. And they said, can we create a program that is really based on joy? And I said, do you want us to measure based on, some other data and some other, no, we just want to spread joy. So we built a program. The program was called One Good Thing. And we helped everybody realize that by doing one good thing every day, by sharing one good thing with someone else, by recognizing one good thing, that they were part of this community of joy spreaders. And what we coined this idea of Joy Scouts, and we created kits of things recognizing people who brought joy, who were spreading joy, and not letting them just do it because it was the goodness of their heart and it's what we do. Right. But they did it as a way to intellectually connect that action with joy and make sure that they recognize that what they did was they went out of their way to bring joy, to spread joy. So I love the idea of Joy Scouts. I love the idea of spreading joy. And, joy is a huge connector. Most people have to be at work. They have to work for a living. The overwhelming majority of people have to do that. So how do we create spaces that have deeper human connection where we can spread joy? What happens? Well, what we know happens is performance improves. We know retention improves. What we know with belonging is that people are willing to take less salary for higher belonging, for increased joy, for increased positivity. So some people say it's the simple thing, but it may be the hardest thing for leaders because you're fundamentally having to recalibrate your mindset. It's not this HR initiative, and I'm not going around saying, hey, let's pat people on the back and going, great job. We live in everybody gets a trophy, even though we didn't. Not saying that at all. But it's finding ways to celebrate the things we do well. Sometimes, and we do a lot of work in safety-focused companies, we focus so much on the incident that we lose sight of the fact that there's tens of thousands, maybe it's hundreds of thousands, of great decisions, the right decision every day. It's the one-off decision. And sometimes we allow that to color things and it begins to take joy away. We see that with all kinds of organizations. How do we celebrate wins? How do we celebrate our people? How do we recognize our people, not just for doing their jobs? I don't believe in that. I believe people are paid to do a job. We recognize them with a salary. But we help them get farther by redesigning the environment. We physically design environments, creating these experiences, by creating recognition systems in there where people can recognize each other for going above and beyond. The beauty when we talk about the cultural ecosystem is the ecosystem allows us to create these behaviors, but then to define what it means to be elite, what it means to exceed expectations and what needs improvement. So there's clarity, but we're able to celebrate because we're able to see what people are doing. Are you meeting our high standard? Are you going above it? So joy is power, and I'll take joy and positivity as powerful tools. And people, well, I don't know how you see this, but we see that people misunderstand positivity. And we actually study it in organizations. We study the positivity quotient. And it may be in any survey we do. Everybody does health surveys and performance surveys, and ours go deeper. But we also measure the positivity quotient. And that positivity quotient is a direct link to employee engagement, to performance, and most important, the likelihood of a company achieving its desired future state. So it tells me that one score, positivity, where we look at inspiration, mindful, happy, optimism, and gratitude, that one score tells me, are you ready for change? How big of a change, and how likely are you going to get there? And most leaders don't take that, don't understand that that is a tool at their disposal.
Well, and it probably starts with being positive yourself as a leader, right?
Hey, divine synchronicity, things happen for us. Let's start with positivity. Let's go back to the beginning.
Well, this has been great. I have one more question for you, though. I'm curious. I like to ask all of my guests this, but kind of as you reflect on your journey, Brad, and your calling, is there a teacher, a mentor, teaching moment that's kind of shaped how you live your purpose?
Oh boy, there's so many of these. I'm blessed every day. I learn from every leader that I get to work with. As much as we help to transform their organizations, we learn from them. I had two mentors, and it's kind of funny we're talking about it in May. They were born on the same day, on May 12th. My dad obviously was probably the greatest inspiration to me in my life. But these two mentors, one very successful, wildly successful entrepreneur and philanthropist, and he just taught just about doing everything the right way, not for recognition, not for anything, but just because it's the right thing to do. And when I was younger, I went to an all-boys summer camp, and for 2 months every summer in the East Coast. And I was a very quiet kid. I never spoke. I never spoke. And I was selected to be the star of the big play that summer, Bye Bye Birdie. The most unlikely person. I don't really have acting talent. Didn't speak. I'm like, why me? Really, why me? And I'll never forget the leader. It was the night before the first night of the show. It was July, I think, 28th, 1980. So many years ago. That's how long I remember it. 2:00 in the morning, I'm in the theater trying to figure out how to move my body that doesn't move the way I'm supposed to move. And I look up, and in the back of this 100-year-old theater, there was the owner of the camp, Bert Margolis. And he was known for wearing old chambray shirts, and the collar was all dislodged. And he stood in the back in the pitch black, in the middle of nowhere, with 3 claps and a thumbs up. And he turned and disappeared into the night. And it was a leadership moment for me because it was one of the most defining moments of my life. And that was, sometimes we need someone else to give us a thumbs up, a belief in us that, yes, we can do it. Yes, you got this. And we believe that leaders have it. And sometimes it just takes that thumbs up and the 3 claps to go do it. The hardest task you can do. So I think that's my story. But I could be here for days telling you about all the things that I learned from leaders and how they've changed my life and my relationships and how we think about performance and how we think about winning. So, but I'll go back to Bert back in 1980 as a pretty transformational moment.
Well, it's the one thing that you have on your mind. You still visualize it and see it. So that's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, I just want to thank you for joining me on this episode and joining me in 2022. Lots of change since then, but it's just talking about, leadership, belonging, joy, happiness. I mean, these are all so critically important in leadership. And I'm just really grateful to you for sharing your wisdom. So thank you very much for being on today.
Thanks for making this so much fun, and thanks for what you do for, gosh, so many of us out here who love continuing to learn and listen to people and their stories and their ideas. And so super grateful for you all for doing it, for inviting me, and hopefully we get to talk before the next 3 or 4 years.
You bet. Super grateful to you too, Brad. And I also want to thank all of you who tuned in today. You can always find more insights from our episodes in the Off the Rak Plus newsletter. Follow Off the Rak on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review. We love those. And share this episode with somebody who needs a little purpose-filled inspiration. So until next time, I just encourage all of you to be human with one another and frankly, find a way to have a positive influence on somebody around you each and every day. Thanks so much.